There are moments when reality feels like a whisper. Have you ever just felt someone think of you, and then the phone rang? Or maybe you're walking down a quiet street, and suddenly a familiar melody floats through the air, a song you hadn't heard in decades. Yet at that exact moment, your chest tightens, your breath pauses, and a memory lights up inside you. It's as if something or someone just called your name across the invisible space between thoughts. Science, ever curious, calls this phenomenon quantum entanglement. But the truth is, you and I have lived it long before physicists gave it a name. Long before Einstein shrugged and called it spooky action at a distance. The question isn't whether entanglement exists. It's why we're so deeply moved by it and why we pretend it's just coincidence. Pause for a moment and feel that this isn't just a concept for textbooks and laboratories. It's your grandma waking up because she senses something is wrong and later finds out her son was hurt miles away. It's the uncanny feeling someone's watching you only to turn around and see a familiar set of eyes. We are not strangers, walking separately through time and space. We are threads in a single tapestry, and sometimes a gentle tug on one strand ripples through the whole wheel. Channel that feeling. Let it sink in, not as something to think about, but as something remembered. Quantum physics tells us something almost poetic. Two particles that once interacted, no matter how far apart they drift, remain connected beyond space and time. If one particle shifts, the other knows, instantly. Just imagine that for a moment. What if your heart works the same way? What if that anxious flutter, that sudden warmth that I just know moment isn't random at all? What if it is your field calling out to another field? Across the quiet fabric of the cosmos, every time you miss someone and don't know why, every time you feel seen before anyone speaks, that is entanglement. That is the universe whispering, you are part of something greater. You are never alone, even in silence. So often, we're taught to ignore this, to call it fantasy, sentimentality, or worse, weakness. We're told, be rational, be logical, don't make things up. But logic has its limits. You and I are more than a bundle of neurons and memories. We are receivers, antennas in constant communion with everything we've ever loved, touched, or even briefly crossed paths with, not metaphorically, energetically. Do you know the moment you just sense your loved one is sad from miles away? That's not magic. That's resonance, like two tuning forks vibrating in harmony. When one shifts frequency, the other sings in response. We like to believe our emotions are private, locked inside our skin, but they are not. Like ripples in a pond, they spread. Every thought, every breath, every unspoken worry travels. Through what field? Through the same field the physicists can't quite define, yet the one that links photons across galaxies. Call it energy, call it consciousness, call it the quantum field. I call it home. And as we gather here today, sharing this invisible space through sound and screen, something within you knows, I'm listening to more than just words. I'm recognizing myself, because the truth is, we have always been entangled. Your first heartbreak, your first moment of awe, your quiet tears, your wild laughter. Someone somewhere felt a tremor from your experience, just like you felt theirs. You might think, well, I don't remember choosing this connection. You don't have to. The universe handles that part. Like the roots of two trees unknowingly intertwined beneath the soil. When one tree drinks deeply, the other is nourished. When one falls, the other feels the ache. So what does this mean for your life? Why should you care about something entangled and unseen? Because once you truly understand this connection, not as an idea, but as a lived reality, your relationships change. You stop trying to fix others or force outcomes. You stop chasing validation from outside yourself. Instead, you begin to feel the pulse of the world within. You start asking, softly, What energy am I broadcasting right now? Because you know it echoes far beyond your body. This is when your relationships deepen not through effort, but through presence. Through awareness, through the calm, knowing that every time you realign with peace, someone else, maybe someone you don't even know, breathes easier. Quantum entanglement teaches us something revolutionary. We don't have to move mountains to change reality. We just have to shift ourselves. Change your vibration. Change the field. Look inward, and the world around you rearranges. You don't need permission from anyone. No technique, no force, just presence. Just the willingness to return again and again to the silent truth vibrating in your cells. You are connected. You are seen. You are loved. Even when no one is visibly watching. Every thought you choose becomes a cosmic signature. It ripples outward, reaching the people, events, and timelines aligned with that frequency. So if tonight, before you sleep, you sit quietly and place a hand over your heart, feel deeply, not to achieve something, but simply to listen, you might notice a subtle hum. That's your field. Touching another, you might catch a memory, a face, a familiar warmth passing through consciousness. Don't push it away. Don't label it. Just imagination. Let it wash over you. Because in that moment, something ancient awakens. Something that belonged to you long before you were born. Something that will still be true long after your name is forgotten. We are one energy dancing between two worlds. And every pulse of your heart is a signal across the quantum sea. 1. Quantum entanglement. A story beyond logic. Quantum entanglement is one of the most curious discoveries in physics. Yet its essence feels strangely familiar to anyone who has ever loved deeply. At its core, entanglement describes a bond between two particles created at the same moment, though they may later drift miles, even galaxies apart. Their connection remains intact. If one particle changes its spin, the other shifts instantly in response, as if space were merely an illusion, as if time were only a cloth draped over something more true and invisible. Einstein, though deeply logical, called this phenomenon spooky action at a distance, because it stood outside what classical physics could justify, and yet, the experiments that confirmed it are undeniable. These particles behave as if they are still speaking the same language, as if what happens to one echoes inside the other, no matter how far they've traveled. But maybe here is where the true story begins, not with physics, but with that flutter in your chest when you think of someone out of nowhere, and then they message you minutes later. Why does the thought of a person appear like a sudden breeze that moves through your awareness, without any logical reason? Or consider how a mother wakes in the night with a sense of dread, only to find that her child, miles away, was in danger at that very moment. These are not scattered coincidences. They are the footprints of the same force that scientists observe under a microscope. If two particles can maintain an unbroken connection through time and space, how much more profound is the entanglement of human hearts, shaped by memory and longing and the subtle languages of instinct. There are people you meet once, yet the resonance lingers for years. There are words spoken long ago, but they still ripple inside your being, like waves that keep returning to the shore. We don't often stop to see it. But what if the reason we think of certain people at the exact moment they think of us isn't accidental? What if memory itself is a signal? What if emotion is the frequency through which we stay threaded together? Imagine two souls who've crossed paths in hundreds of lifetimes. Imagine that every shared smile, every tear held in the quiet, every moment of touch or loss or forgiveness is like the quantum signature of those two particles. The separation may be physical, but the connection is not erased. It moves under the skin of reality like an underground river, silent but alive. And when one person shifts when they come to peace, or begin to heal, or open their heart, the other feels the echo, even without knowing why. You felt this, haven't you? Sitting alone, in silence, suddenly feeling the presence of someone who isn't physically there. The tightening of breath, a warmth, a sweetness, a sorrow, something in you responding to something in them. Logic steps aside in moments like that, not because logic is untrue, but because logic can't reach into that layer of experience, the place where connection is not measured by time or distance, the place where we are not separate beings, but mirrored echoes of one consciousness, exploring itself. Perhaps quantum entanglement is the universe's way of whispering this truth to us. The smallest particles know how to stay connected, so why do we ever believe we are alone? 2. Every deep relationship holds entanglement. In the deepest chambers of our lived experience, beyond the reach of words and beyond the grasp of logic, there is a kind of connection that cannot be measured, cannot be boxed neatly into any theory, and yet it moves through silence and memory as if it were the air we breathe. Every profound relationship we have ever known carries within it the quiet fingerprints of entanglement, the kind that quantum physics describes in particles and the heart recognizes in human bonds. When we speak of love, of the bond between mother and child, or the sense of belonging, you sometimes feel with someone you've met only once, but seem to have known for lifetimes. We are speaking of more than biology or emotion. We are speaking of energy, an invisible thread that ties two beings together. Psychology may try to explain this through attachment styles and shared experiences, and while parts of that are true, something deeper lingers beneath those frameworks. We intuitively know that a mother wakes in the night not because she is anxious, but because something in her attuned energy field felt a disturbance in her child's well-being. We know that lovers can sense one another's pain across distance, not because of imagination, but because some part of them still vibrates in tandem. This is not the language of superstition. It is the language of entanglement. This kind of deep bond is an energetic resonance. It doesn't require constant communication to stay alive. It's why you can fall out of touch with someone for 10 years and still feel that sudden rush in your chest if their name appears out of nowhere. It's why some people can't explain why they still feel haunted by a relationship that ended long ago, because the truth is, the form of the relationship may have ended, but the energetic entanglement has not. Just as particles stay connected after being separated, we too carry fragments of one another through time. And those fragments continue to respond, to react, to remember. Think of what happens when you sit quietly, and someone you haven't spoken to in years shows up in your thoughts. Uninvited but gentle. You can't explain why. Maybe you even feel subtle emotions, stir curiosity, sadness, warmth. Then, hours later, they send you a message, or you find out something significant happened to them that same day. The logical mind rushes to call it coincidence, but the heart remembers differently. The heart whispers, "You were connected then, and you are connected still," because the entanglement doesn't vanish when words stop. It doesn't require physical closeness to operate. It operates beneath the surface of time. The way roots from two trees can remain intertwined long after their branches have grown apart. When two people are deeply connected, they often know each other beyond words. You felt this walking into a room and knowing instantly that the person you care about is hurting, even if they're smiling, or sensing when someone is thinking of you with longing. Even if no message was sent, the energy speaks first. The body follows, and the mind tries to catch up. This is because the field between those two beings, a field formed by shared presence, shared vulnerability, shared transformation, becomes its own kind of living organism. It observes, it remembers, it responds, just like entangled particles mirror one another's shifts. The emotional states of those bound by deep relational energy often mirror each other as well. One person grows, evolves, softens, and the other sometimes, even without understanding why, begins to feel something stirring within themselves too. It may be subtle, a shift in behavior, a dream, a sudden desire to reach toward them again. This is not magic. It is resonance. It is the law of the inner universe. What quantum mechanics reveals about particles is simply a way of showing us something we already know about the human heart. Two things that were once united cannot fully unknow each other. Even if they part physically, we tend to see relationships as binaries, together or not, speaking or not, in love or not. But the energy between beings doesn't obey those categories. Energy remembers where minds forget. Energy feels where logic shuts down. That's why some relationships that ended years ago still hold sway over your internal landscape. You still feel their voice in the quiet moments. You still carry their laughter like light breaking through darkness. The story may have ended with words, but the field remains. This doesn't mean we are doomed to carry pain forever. It means something far more gentle and powerful, that every deep connection, even the ones that broke us open, has shaped us in resonance. And that resonance is still part of who we are. It means healing is not about severing or forgetting, but about integrating, about understanding that entanglement in relationships is not a trap. It is an invitation. An invitation to see that love was never meant to be contained in form. Love is a frequency. It vibrates beneath distance, remains alive in silence, and asks us, every day, to grow with it rather than try to control it. Sometimes, the people we once shared that frequency with fade from our lives. The story does not continue, but the entanglement remains like a muted chord, soft, steady, present. It doesn't need to activate. It doesn't need to demand anything. It simply is. Like an old song that drifts through the background of your life, pulling your heart into places you can't name. Sometimes that entanglement calls someone back into your life in unexpected ways. Other times it simply reminds you you are capable of loving that deeply because you were once touched by that depth. Entanglement in relationships is humbling, because it teaches us that we are never as separate, as isolated, or as forgotten as we assume. It teaches us that love is far broader than possession, far more enduring than promises. It shows us that every time we've truly let someone into the sacred space of our heart, they never fully leave, not because of clinging, but because energy doesn't erase itself. It remains. It transforms. It integrates. And perhaps the most comforting realization is this: if entangled, particles really do respond instantly across the vastness of space. Then why should it be so hard to believe that when your heart shifts toward forgiveness, someone else, somewhere, breathes easier without knowing why? Why should it be strange to think that your healing heals the field quietly, invisibly, just as your wound once cries out through it? This is what it means to share a deep relationship, not to own or to hold on, but to recognize that an invisible field has been formed between you and another soul, and that field will respond to the truth of your being, not your words, not your performance, but your vibration. You are entangled with everyone you've ever truly loved, not in a way that binds you, but in a way that reminds you you are woven into a greater design, and nothing real is ever lost. 3. Thinking of them out of nowhere. Is it really just coincidence? There are moments in life that arrive so quietly, so subtly, that the logical mind dismisses them without hesitation. Yet the heart pauses with a knowing whisper, as if something unseen has just brushed across its surface. You pick up your phone, your fingers hovering for no apparent reason, and within seconds, a message appears from the exact person whose face or name had barely formed in your mind. Or you wake up one morning with a sudden, unexplainable urge to think of someone you haven't spoken to in years. Then hours later, you find out they were thinking of you at that precise time, or something significant happened in their life. The world tells us these are coincidences, accidents of timing. Nothing more than random neurons firing across a restless brain. But anyone who has lived deeply enough, who has felt the invisible pull of the heart long before logic could justify it, knows that these small events are far from random. They are signals, quiet, subtle, but powerful transmissions from a shared energetic field. They are echoes from a space beneath the visible world, where attention itself acts as a bridge, where emotion is language, and where connection is not reliant on proximity or explanation. When you suddenly think of someone, and I mean truly feel their presence, not just as memory but as a pulse in your awareness, it is not just imagination flickering. Something in your internal field has shifted, has opened, has become receptive to a vibration that was already there, waiting to be felt. Our minds are not closed boxes locked inside the skull. They are antennas. They are receivers and transmitters, constantly sending and receiving information that does not travel through wires or screens. You do not think of someone, they arrive. They surface into consciousness, not from nowhere, but from a deeper layer of connection between you and them. Imagine two tuning forks placed in separate rooms. Strike one of them hard enough, and the other will begin to vibrate in resonance without being touched, without being directly influenced. The energy moves invisibly, but the effect is undeniable. The same principle applies to people. When someone who has shared a significant emotional bond with you experiences a shift, their thoughts turning toward you, their emotional field rippling with longing, sadness, gratitude, or love, some part of you feels it. You may not understand why you suddenly remember their voice, their face, their laughter, or the particular way they sighed after saying goodbye. But something in your field is responding. Something is resonating in tandem. Quantum physics calls this principle non-locality, the idea that information can be shared instantly without any physical medium. Entangled particles respond to each other without exchanging signals in the classical sense. They simply know. And if the smallest units of matter can do this, why would consciousness, the very force that animates this reality, not possess the same capacity in a far more profound way? The heart experiences what the mind tries to deny. A quiet, intricate web links us. And every thought, every emotional tremor, travels through that web. You've felt it countless times. That moment when your breath catches for no reason, followed by a vivid image of someone from your past, and then a few hours later they reach out, or you discover they have been thinking of you too. You begin to wonder, is this imagination? Or is this communication in another language, one that doesn't require words, effort, or even awareness on either side? To understand this, imagine consciousness not as something trapped in the skull, but as something far broader, like the air we breathe. In this shared field, our thoughts, emotions, and memories radiate outward, like signals from a radio tower. Not everyone picks up every frequency, but those who are tuned to you or shaped by shared history, resonance, or emotional truth can feel those signals. When they shift, when you think of someone, you are not pulling them from your memory. You are picking up an active signal being generated in the present moment. You are not recalling the past. You are responding to something alive, moving, reaching. This is why some connections are harder to ignore than others. You can go months, years even, without seeing or speaking to someone, and yet their presence will rise in you like a tide with no visible cause. Somewhere, in the unseen landscape of energy, a movement has occurred. It doesn't matter that you are not face to face. The truth is, you were never disconnected. The field between you may have grown silent, but silence is not absence. It is merely unspoken companionship. To live in awareness of this is not to become mystical or irrational. It is to become honest with what your experience has always been telling you. Think of all the times the rational mind dismissed what the heart knew instinctively. Think of the moments when you felt someone watching you, and turned to find their eyes already on you. Think of the dreams that felt like messages, the sudden pain in your chest that coincided with someone you care about hurting miles away. In a world that worships logic, we forget that life communicates in ways logic cannot decode. So what do we do with this? How do we make sense of the fact that we are constantly receiving signals from others? Even without awareness or intention, the first answer is simple. Though not easy, we stop dismissing what we feel. We give ourselves the permission to honor those moments when someone comes to mind without context. When memory moves like a current beneath rational thought, a sudden thought is rarely just a thought. It is often a vibration passing through you. And the more attuned you are to your own field through presence, through breath, through living gently and consciously, the more clearly you begin to sense what is yours and what is arriving from beyond. The second answer is more subtle. We learn to see connection not as something built through effort, but as something revealed through awareness. You do not create these invisible threads. They already exist. Your only role is to notice them, and in doing so, allow them to serve as reminders of the truth beneath the surface of all relationships, that no one arrives and leaves our lives purely by accident. Even those whose stories have ended still pulse through your inner world. They appear in dreams, in sudden emotion, in memories whose timing cannot be explained. The bond does not vanish. It transforms. And perhaps the most profound truth hidden in these coincidences is this: you are not drifting randomly through a cold, mechanical universe. You are living within a field of intelligence and interconnection. When someone thinks of you with tenderness, that tenderness finds you not always in words, but in sensation. When you are loved from afar, your heart feels it. When you send forgiveness silently to someone in pain, somewhere, they breathe a little easier without knowing why. So the next time you stop mid-task and someone's name rises like a soft flame in your mind, pause. Do not ask, "Why am I thinking of them?" Ask instead, "What is passing between us right now?" Because the truth is simple and vast, whispered gently through the fabric of consciousness. Connection is not measured by proximity, but by resonance. What you feel is real. What you sense is communication. And what you call coincidence is often just the mind failing to understand what the heart already knows deeply, that in ways beyond explanation, we are entangled. We always have been. 4. Intuition is quantum entanglement in a subtle dimension. Intuition is often misunderstood in our modern world, written off as instinct, dismissed as imagination, or explained away as some leftover piece of our primal evolution. Yet anyone who has lived through enough suffering, enough surrender, enough moments when rationality crumbled and only inner knowing remained, understands that intuition is not some romantic superstition. It is a reality that sits just beneath the surface of awareness, constantly whispering, constantly guiding, constantly calling us back to a truth older than language and deeper than thought. Intuition is not a ghost in the mind. It is a signal alive, precise, responsive, emerging from the quantum field of consciousness itself. It is the subtle expression of entanglement at the level of awareness, the way two particles communicate beyond the limits of time and space, the way two hearts understand each other before any words are spoken. To understand intuition, one cannot remain only in the intellect. Intuition lives in the space beyond logic, in the vibrating fabric of our being, where the mind softens and the heart hears what the eyes cannot see. It is often experienced as a whisper, a shiver in the chest, a knowing that cannot be traced back to thought, but still feels truer than anything thought could construct. Think of the moments when something inside you said, "Don't go," even though everything on the outside looked safe. Or when an indescribable force urged you to call someone, only to discover they needed you at that exact moment. Where does that knowing come from? It does not come from memory. It does not come from analysis. It comes from connection, deep, invisible connection to the field in which every event, every attention. Every heart is already woven together. Quantum entanglement tells us that particles can exchange information instantly, even across unimaginable distance. Because they are not truly separate, the space between them is an illusion. In the same way, intuition does not travel through the nervous system like ordinary thought. It arises directly from the field in which everything is already happening. If we understood our inner world through this lens, we would see that intuition is not something we generate, it is something we receive. It is a signal broadcast from a level of awareness where all potentials exist simultaneously, where the threads of every possible timeline vibrate like strings on an unseen instrument, waiting for us to tune into them. We are not disconnected beings wandering through chaos. We are receivers, each of us a kind of frequency-sensitive organism, always absorbing, decoding, and responding to subtle shifts in the field of consciousness around us. But your intuition is only as clear as your internal space. When the mind is loud, when fear is driving the conversation inside you, when old pain dominates the emotional body, the signal becomes scrambled. The intuition is still there, but like a radio tuned to the wrong frequency. All you hear is static. It is only when we begin to live with more stillness, when the noise of comparison, achievement, anxiety, and survival begins to quiet, that we rediscover our natural capacity to hear the subtle. Silence is not empty. Silence is full of information. It is only in that inner quiet that the deeper voice begins to emerge. Not as thought, but as resonance. That is why the moments of intuition often feel like something remembered instead of something learned. In stillness, you become like a calm lake, no longer wrinkled by surface winds. And in that calmness, you begin to reflect the truth of the sky without distortion. You begin to feel the pulse of things before they happen, not because you've predicted them, but because you are no longer separate from them. The more attuned you are, the more intuition feels like an extension of your awareness. It becomes natural to sense when someone is lying, not because of their words or gestures, but because something in you hears the dissonance in their energetic field. It becomes natural to feel when something is aligned for you, not because of logic, but because it feels like a gentle click inside your being, like a door opening without resistance, like water flowing toward its natural descent. Intuition is nothing less than the part of you that remains entangled with the whole. It is your link to the unified field. It's the reason so many mystics across cultures describe enlightenment not as the acquisition of knowledge, but as the recognition of something that was always here, the interconnectedness of all things. When you sense an outcome before it unfolds, or feel another person's emotions even when they are concealed, or know in your bones that something isn't right long before the evidence presents itself, you are witnessing the same principle physics describes in particles. You are experiencing the field directly, not through thought, not through deduction, but through resonance. And it works both ways. You don't just receive information, you emit it, which means that when you shift your vibration toward peace, someone who is entangled with you feels a softening bound. When you choose forgiveness, someone who once harmed you may suddenly feel safe to face their own shadows. When you return to yourself after years of self-abandonment, those who were unconsciously linked to your woundedness will feel the pressure lift. You are always affecting the field. Intuition is your doorway to knowing how and when. This is why intuition grows quieter in those who rush through life, frantically controlling outcomes, and louder in those who learn to surrender into presence. When the body relaxes, when the breath slows, when your awareness stops struggling to get somewhere else, you enter into alignment with the field. The cosmic noise recedes, the subtle becomes audible. You begin to notice the spaces between things, the invisible corridors through which energy travels. And suddenly, intuition is no longer something you occasionally feel. It becomes the language you move through life with. You no longer rely on the surface of things, on performance, promises, Appearances. You learn to listen to vibration, to feel the truth beneath the words, to trust the quiet pull in your chest over the loud arguments in your head. Intuition does not demand. It invites, it speaks in sensation, in imagery, in soft inner movement. It isn't loud because it doesn't need to be. It knows you will hear it when you are ready. And when you do, you recognize that it has always been there waiting patiently, beneath the noise of identity, beneath the armor of survival, beneath the storms of emotion. Intuition is quantum entanglement for the human soul. It is the silent evidence that you are not isolated, not orphaned, not wandering through empty space. You are woven into a vast, intelligent field, a field that speaks to you in the language of feeling, timing, and gentle knowing. Risk trusting that. Risk sitting in silence long enough to hear what life is trying to tell you. Risk letting your inner knowing guide you more than fear or logic ever has. Because when you do, you will discover that intuition was never a fragile thing you had to develop. It was the quiet pulse of your eternal connection to everything, waiting for you to remember how to listen. 5. When you change. Reality changes, entanglement within yourself. There comes a moment in every life when we start to see that the world we've been living in isn't just something outside of us. It is something mirrored from within. What we call our universe isn't a fixed, objective thing imposed upon us. It is a reflection resting quietly in the hands of our own consciousness. Every experience, every relationship, every persistent pattern in your life is, in some subtle inner sense, responding to the frequency you emit. The ancient mystics said, "As within, so without." And today, quantum physics echoes the same truth in a new language when the observer shifts. The observed shifts. When the vibration changes in one part of the field, everything entangled with it must move accordingly. This is not philosophy. This is coherence. It is entanglement expressed through the unfolding of your life. Most of us live believing that change happens from the outside in. We wait for better circumstances before we'll allow ourselves to feel at peace. We wait for someone to return love to us before we relax into being lovable. We wait for our bodies to heal before we feel whole. But reality responds to us not the other way around. Like an entangled particle, communicating instantly with its twin, the outer world mirrors the inner state with precision and honesty. When you shift your internal frequency, whether through releasing old wounds, forgiving deeply, or evolving beyond long-held fears, your reality must shift to reflect that change, because it is woven from the same energetic fabric as you. The future is not something separate from you. It is an echo of who you are becoming. It cannot unfold differently until you become different. Think of it this way. If you look into a mirror and frown, the reflection will not smile back. If you want to see joy, you must become the source of joy. Reality functions with the same precision. It does not distort itself to give you what you want. It responds faithfully to who you are, which means that the version of reality you experience is not a punishment or a test. It is an entangled, instantaneous response to the dominant frequency you hold. Many people feel trapped by their circumstances without realizing that the circumstances are simply responding to the energy they've been transmitting for years. The belief that life must be hard, the pervasive sense of unworthiness, the craving to control rather than trust. When these internal states shift even a fraction, a new world becomes possible, not because the world changed randomly, but because the old version of you is no longer resonant with the same external reflections. Every true transformation begins inside, and every inner transformation is communicated instantly to the field of potential around you, sending ripples across timelines, the way a pebble sends ripples across still water. Quantum entanglement speaks of twin particles, two things that behave as if they are one. You have a twin. Two, not in the physical sense, But in the realm of time, the future version of you is an entangled expression of who you are right now. Your choices, your emotional patterns, your core beliefs, they shape the path ahead before you even take the first step. When you shift your frequency, when truth replaces illusion, when presence replaces fear, your future changes instantly. Because the you that walks toward that future is now someone different. This is why some people seem to experience sudden breakthroughs after years of stagnation. It was not because reality finally softened. It was because they stopped fighting, stopped running, stopped clinging to some rigid image of how life should be, and instead surrendered into the truth that their inner coherence is the real architecture of their world. When the heart truly opens, when it no longer fears the pain of the past, or demands guarantees from the future, a new timeline emerges, almost effortlessly. This isn't magic, it is alignment. The external reality simply responds to the new vibration, like a tuning fork resonates with another. It cannot do anything else. Have you ever noticed that when you are at peace, solutions arrive more gently? When you are not gripping tightly to an outcome, opportunities reveal themselves. When you stop trying to force change, life changes on its own. That is entanglement. That is the unseen relationship between your internal state and the fabric of experience. The field is always listening not to your words, not to your hopes, but to what you truly are in this moment. Many of us approach spiritual growth as a means to an end. We meditate so we can manifest something. We practice gratitude so we can improve our luck. But these are still forms of control. They are still rooted in the emptiness of not enough. Transformation happens when the practice becomes the way you live, not to earn something from life, but to inhabit the truth that life is always mirroring you with perfect clarity. When you shift in sincerity, not as a performance, but as a change of being, the field responds immediately. You cannot see it all at once. Just as you cannot perceive the roots growing beneath the soil, but slowly, then suddenly, everything in your life begins to reflect the new coherence within you. Relationships shift or dissolve. Opportunities arrive out of nowhere. Old stories fall apart. And the future, the one entangled with every breath you take, begins to feel less like a distant possibility and more like an unfolding inevitability. The deepest truth here is this: you are not trying to change reality. You are remembering that reality has always been connected to you, speaking to you in the language of reflection. When you meet an obstacle outside of you, it is not there to punish you. It is a mirror asking, lovingly, is this story still true in you? And when you soften, when you breathe, when you come into alignment with peace instead of resistance, the mirror changes, because you did. This isn't about pretending everything is fine or avoiding pain. It is about understanding that pain itself is part of the entangled field. When you acknowledge it, honor it, and allow it to move through you rather than harden inside you, the entangled future version of you becomes someone lighter, someone less burdened by what once felt unbearable. And life responds, not by removing all challenges, but by presenting them in ways that call you into greater strength, compassion, and fluidity. You do not need to force change. You need to become change. You do not need to chase a new life. You need to quietly and sincerely become the frequency that matches the life you already know is possible. The field is not judging you. It is listening. It is reflecting. It is moving in response to the coherence or fragmentation in your energy. Every moment, you are broadcasting a signal to your entangled future. This signal is not your words or your actions. It is your state. It is the way your heart beats in response to truth or lies. It is the way your breath softens in trust or tightens in fear. It is the silence in the night when you finally surrender into being no longer asking reality to be different, but allowing yourself to be seen by it fully. And when the signal shifts, reality shifts, perhaps slowly at first, like a tide changing direction, but always with precision. So if you truly want to step into a different world, don't begin by fighting what is outside you. Begin by asking gently, what in me is still aligned with what I no longer want to experience? What part of me is still vibrating with old stories, old wounds, old identities? Then let go of the fight. Let go of the need to force an outcome. Let go of the outdated belief that reality is something being done to you. Entanglement teaches us otherwise. Reality is something happening with you. The world is not separate. It is a response. And when you change truly, deeply, from the inside, the world must follow. That is not optimism. That is physics. That is presence. That is freedom. 6. Synchronicity. Entanglement at the level of experience. There are moments in our lives when the world seems to lean in and whisper back to us. A series of repeated numbers shows up on clocks and receipts. A book you've never heard of falls off a shelf in front of you, only for you to discover it contains the exact message your heart has been quietly asking for. You run into someone unexpectedly, perhaps in a cafe or at the airport, and even though it feels like chance, something in you knows this meeting is part of a larger unfolding. Something in you pauses, not with fear or confusion, but with a soft, inner recognition, as if the fabric of reality had shifted so your paths could cross at precisely this moment. These events have a name that sounds almost poetic: synchronicity. Yet for all its mystique, synchronicity is not magic in the fairy tale sense, nor is it coincidence in the statistical sense. It is what quantum entanglement looks like when it rises up into our lived experience, a kind of divine choreography, woven out of energy, timing, and resonance. It is the universe becoming visible in delicately arranged patterns, letting us know that everything is connected, and nothing is random. Synchronicity is not something that we create with sheer will, any more than the tides are created by watching the waves. It arises when the inner self and the outer field are in alignment. When we become quiet enough to hear our own frequency, the world begins to speak back to us in the language of signs. The more present we are, the more clearly we perceive these delicate, orchestrated events, and begin to understand that they are not interruptions to the flow of life. They are the flow itself. For many people, synchronicity becomes most visible after a period of inner change or awakening, when something shifts inside, deep grief softened, an old belief released, a new truth finally accepted. Something in our field begins to vibrate differently. The world, always attentive, always listening at the quantum level, responds. The shift inside us ripples outward, entangling with possibilities, bending circumstances into alignment, drawing the right symbols and people into our path, not because life suddenly becomes magical, but because we finally become receptive enough to notice the magic that has always been there. Consider the repeated numbers: 1, 1, 1, 1. San, san, san. R, R, R. Some see them and laugh, write them off as nothing. But those who live in gentler awareness begin to recognize that these small patterns are like whispers from the quantum field. They appear to interrupt our routine thinking, inviting us back into the present, as if reality is tapping us on the shoulder and saying, "You're in the right place. Stay awake." When you see them frequently during periods of deep inner change, it is often because the internal shift has reached a point of synchronicity with an external shift. It is the energy equivalent of two clocks falling into the same rhythm. Then there are the sudden, unexpected meetings with people who feel like pieces of a puzzle you didn't even know you were solving. People who appear not to fill a role or play a part, but to usher in something necessary, whether that is clarity, closure, or expansion. Often, the meeting itself is fleeting. Maybe you speak only briefly, or the encounter happens at a time when you least expect it, yet the impact lingers, almost inaccessibly, as if the connection was arranged from beyond your conscious mind. These are moments of entanglement between timelines, where what you are becoming intersects with what you need to meet, and both elements move toward each other in perfect timing. Life is always speaking to us this way, through symbols and rhythms, through alignment and resonance. The challenge is not to extract meaning with force, turning every coincidence into a prophecy, but to develop a soft awareness that listens without grasping. Synchronicity is like a river of information flowing toward you. You do not have to dive into every current. You only need to notice which currents touch the shore of your awareness more than once. Perhaps gently, perhaps insistently, when a theme returns, when a symbol repeats, when an opportunity comes knocking 3 times instead of 1, it is often because something deep inside you already knows the significance, even if your mind has not yet named it. To understand synchronicity, it is helpful to view life not as a linear series of events, but as an unfolding conversation with a deeper intelligence that is both within and beyond you. The field responds, not to your demands, not to your anxiety or your fear of missing out, but to your frequency. When you are in harmony with your own truth, the field meets you like a dance partner who knows all your steps before you take them. You feel it when things fall into place naturally, when the right mentor appears, or the job comes just as you are ready to leave your old one, or the path lights up before you even take the first step. Not because you forced it, but because you are no longer resisting the subtle guidance that has always been there. Some people speak of synchronicity as if it is purely external, as if the universe is sending signs to guide us. But the truth is more tender, more intimate. Synchronicities arise from within, as reflections of inner coherence. They are the outer expressions of inward clarity, like ripples created by a stone dropped in water. The stone is your consciousness. The water is the field of potential. The ripples are synchronicity, nothing random, all connected. You do not need to chase signs or force understanding. You need only learn to trust the rhythm in which the signs unfold, knowing they come precisely when your timeline intersects with their meaning. Imagine life as an ocean of entangled potentials. The people you will meet, the opportunities that are aligned with you, even the healing you have yet to fully claim, all of them exist in the field already, vibrating subtly in your direction. When you begin to vibrate in resonance with them, not through longing or desperation, but through presence, honesty, and inner alignment, they begin to move toward you. Just as you move toward them, that is synchronicity. Not luck, not superstition. Resonance. Meeting resonance in perfect timing. When you look back on your life, you can usually trace these moments, tiny miracles that led you somewhere meaningful without ever showing their full design in real time. You can feel how the broken pieces lined up in such a way that you were ushered toward your next chapter. Though it may not have been clear at the time, you can recall certain conversations, certain meetings, certain images that lingered long beyond their duration, not because they were extraordinary in themselves, but because they carried a thread that was part of your unfolding story. Perhaps the greatest gift of synchronicity is that it reminds us we are not wandering alone in a cold universe. We are part of a living field that listens, responds, and collaborates. We are in constant dialogue with something larger than ourselves, a consciousness that moves through symbol, timing, and seemingly chance encounters. And every time we recognize one of these moments, something in us relaxes. The mind stops pushing so hard. The heart softens into a deeper trust. Because the truth, the quiet truth beneath every coincidence, is that life is not happening to you. It is happening with you. And each moment of synchronicity is like a hand reaching out from that invisible world, saying gently, "You are on your way. The path is opening. Keep listening. Keep breathing. Keep returning to the frequency of trust, knowing that every time you align with the truth of your being, the entire universe rearranges itself to meet you there." 7. Science has proven what spirituality has known all along. There is something beautiful, almost pudic, about the moments when modern science finally turns its gaze toward truths that ancient wisdom has held gently for thousands of years. Quantum physics, with all its equations and experiments, has begun to confirm something that monks in silent monasteries and mystics walking barefoot under starlit skies have known in the marrow of their being. We are connected, not metaphorically, not symbolically, but literally, vibrationally, energetically. Einstein, one of the most brilliant minds to ever walk this earth, once called quantum entanglement spooky action at a distance, as if even he could not yet accept what his own equations were revealing. Two particles, once joined, continue to respond to one another instantly, across unfathomable distances, violating classical ideas of time and space, communicating through a dimension that no physical mechanism can explain. He called it spooky, but for the countless souls throughout history who have lived with open hearts and quiet minds, it was never spooky. It was simply the language of the unseen world that they had always experienced in the silence of meditation, in the depths of prayer, and in the soft habits of presence. Long before string theory, before relativity, before the first quantum experiment was even imagined, there were those who closed their eyes, breathed deeply, and discovered that placing attention inward uncovers a vast landscape, one in which separation is revealed to be nothing but an illusion. Buddhist monks spoke of interbeing, that nothing exists independently, that all of life is interwoven, interpenetrating, breathing as one organism. Indigenous shamans interacted with the spirit of plants and animals, sensing no border between self and other. Early Christian mystics experienced a divine union in which God, the soul, and all of creation blended into one seamless presence of love. And yet it is only now, when equations and lasers begin to expose the quantum nature of matter, that the modern world starts to believe what the spiritual world has long embodied. Spirituality has always been experiential knowledge. A mystic does not believe in connection, they feel it. A child does not learn empathy, they live it. Those who meditate deeply do not need a particle accelerator to confirm that the mind is not contained within the skull. They experience that the boundary between the inner world and the outer world begins to dissolve when the mind grows still. In this silence, something very much like entanglement reveals itself. You notice the thoughts of others without being told. You sense the emotional weather of the room before anyone speaks. You begin to feel, in a subtle but undeniable way, that life is not happening to you, but through you, that the world is not outside, sealed off behind a field of skin and bone, but inside you, pulsing, responding, reflecting. The scientific mind looks at entanglement and says, two particles are linked. When one moves, the other responds even faster than light can travel. But how? The spiritual mind looks at entanglement and says, of course, this is what happens when you release the illusion of separation. One tells us what happens, the other already knows why. Science and spirituality are not at war. They are two different instruments playing the same melody. One paints the cosmos in equations, the other listens to the cosmos in stillness. One needs proof, the other needs presence. And perhaps most profoundly, both, in their own way, are reaching toward the same truth, that we are more than matter, more than thought, more than projection. We are threads in a radiant field of consciousness, woven together by an intelligence that does not obey the limitations of logic. When Einstein called entanglement spooky action at a distance, he was facing the edge of the known world, without realizing that countless spiritual traditions had been existing on the other side of that edge for ages. For those who cultivate inner stillness, whether through meditation, prayer, breathwork, or sacred movement, what seems spooky to the scientific mind begins to feel like the most natural experience imaginable. They know what it feels like to heal someone from afar, to sense the suffering of a loved one in a different city or country, to wake with a sudden grief that only later makes sense when they learn that someone dear has just passed away. People who live with sensitivity, with open presence, do not marvel at the distance between two hearts. They marvel at the way distance collapses under the force of quiet love. This is why healers exist, not because of magic, not because of irrational belief, but because they understand, at the level of felt reality, that energy does not obey the walls of the body any more than entangled particles obey the distance between galaxies. They understand, through lived experience, that when their heart softens, someone else breathes easier. When they forgive, someone else feels a weight lift from their chest without knowing why. When they place their palm over their own heart and breathe into it with sincerity, someone who once hurt them may suddenly feel the confusing urge to apologize or reconcile. We do not need to force these experiences into the language of science to validate them, but when science begins to echo what is already known in the heart, something beautiful happens. The mind becomes less afraid to trust the subtle. The intellect begins to soften into humility. Science continues to search the quantum realm, trying to understand how matter behaves when observed versus when unobserved. How possibility collapses into form only when we bring our attention to it. Meditation teaches the same thing, that when you bring loving awareness to your body, to your breath, your wounds, your fear, those possibilities within you collapse into something coherent. The wave becomes a particle, the chaos becomes presence. This is not metaphor. This is resonance. What we are beginning to understand is this: human consciousness is not separate from the quantum field. We are not outside observers. We are co-creators. When we feel deeply, when we think quietly, when we forgive honestly, we are interacting with reality at its most fundamental layer. And that is why, when we live from the heart, the world begins to rearrange itself around us. Not through force, not through will, but through entanglement, through coherence. So perhaps Einstein was right to call entanglement spooky, but not because it is strange, only because it forces us to confront the limits of what we think is possible. Rituals in temples, chants under moonlight, silent meditation in flowing robes. All these things were never superstition. They were ways of entering into the field, the ways of tuning the inner antenna, so that the outer world could respond as mirror instead of mystery. Science is finally catching up, but spirituality has been here the whole time, sitting in the quiet, waiting with open hands, and it says softly, almost with a smile, "Welcome." You've tried to understand with the mind what the heart has always known: you were never alone. You were never separate. The threads have always been there, connecting everything beneath the surface of what you can see. Now you just have the language to name it. 8. Loneliness is an illusion. We are never truly separate. There are nights when silence feels like a weight, when the air seems too still, and you might look around and wonder if anyone truly sees you, if anyone truly understands what it is to carry the quiet ache you've been holding beneath your ribs. Loneliness is real as an experience, deeply real, but it is not true at the deepest level of existence. It feels like an isolated island, but in truth, it is a wave in an infinite ocean, and you have simply forgotten, for a time, that you are made of water. At the core of your being, you are not a single, isolated unit of consciousness. You are an expression of a vast network, alive, breathing, interconnected like one neuron inside a universal mind, like one leaf on a forest of infinite trees. You have never truly been alone, not in the moments when you felt unseen, not in the moments when grief hollowed your chest, not even in the moments when every room you entered echoed back your own inner silence. Because the truth is, we are connected, not metaphorically, not poetically, but literally, electrically, Energetically, the loneliness you feel is not a fact of existence. It is a veil of perception. Something in the mind believes it is separate, believes it stands outside the whole. But this belief is a misunderstanding. It is a temporary forgetting of your original nature. You are a field, not a form. You are a part of a living, pulsating network of consciousness that stretches across time, space, body, and soul. When you stop resisting this truth, when you gently breathe into your body and let the tension soften, you begin to feel the subtle pulse of something greater moving through you. You may sit alone in a quiet room, but if you close your eyes, feel the rise and fall of your breath, and let your awareness sink deeper into the space behind your thoughts, you will begin to sense a presence there, a kind of hum, a kind of warmth that doesn't come from you but moves through you. That is connection. That is the network speaking. You see, the heart does not beat in isolation. Every heartbeat you feel in your chest is part of a universal rhythm. A biological drum synced to the pulse of billions of other hearts. The electromagnetic field that emanates from your heart extends several feet outside the body, overlapping invisibly with the fields of others. When you walk past someone and feel an inexplicable sensation, lightness, anxiety, familiarity, it is not random. It is resonance. It is the fields communicating. It is evidence that loneliness has never been the whole story. You are living inside an interconnected ocean of feeling, thought, and vibration. Even when the mind feels small and separate, this is why we often feel things for others without knowing why. It's why you sometimes wake up with grief that isn't yours, or sudden peace that came out of nowhere. You are an antenna. You receive. You transmit. And the signal is subtle, constant, unbroken. Loneliness comes when our attention contracts, when fear narrows our gaze, until all we can see is a body walking through the world, a name, a story that seems separate from others. But when you widen that gaze gently, without forcing, you begin to sense the truth beneath every breath. You are never moving through reality alone. You are being held by it, woven through it, breathed into it by something far greater than thought. Think of it this way. Billions of people across the planet are breathing right now, their chests rising and falling in a silent, unconscious rhythm. Children laughing, elders weeping, lovers whispering, travelers sleeping, hearts breaking, hearts healing, and through every one of those hearts flows the same essential energy. You may not see it, but deep in the quantum fabric of existence, every breath is synchronized. Every pulse is part of the same cosmic network. In that sense, solitude is never truly solitude. It is a doorway, an invitation to return inward and rediscover that you do not need to seek connection outside, because you are connection made flesh. When you breathe deeply and sense the rhythm of your heartbeat, you are not just calming yourself, you are plugging back into the field you have always belonged to. Loneliness begins to dissolve when you stop asking, "Why am I alone?" and start asking, "What part of me has forgotten its connection?" You begin to see that your suffering comes not from being separate, but from believing that you are. Even your pain is not isolated. It is connected to the pain of generations before you, and echoes into the collective field of countless others who have felt the same longing, the same emptiness, the same night sky pressing down on their chest. That is why something changes when you speak your truth. When you grieve honestly, when you sit with another person in stillness and let the words fall away, something in your field opens. Something in their field opens, and suddenly two nervous systems, previously alone in their pain, begin to settle into a shared frequency. The loneliness breaks not because circumstances change, but because the truth was felt. This is the healing dimension of knowing you are never truly alone. Loneliness loses its grip, not when you fill your life with people, but when you allow your field to feel again. When you stop clenching, when you let emotion move as energy, instead of trapping it in your throat. When you breathe deeply and allow your heart to wake from the numbness of self-protection. Because beneath all of it, connection is not something you work at. It is something you remember. You are connected simply by existing. Every thought you have ripples outward. Every softening in your chest sets off a cascade of subtle change in the field. When you feel even a small moment of peace, maybe listening to rain, maybe sitting beside a sleeping pet, your nervous system sends a signal through the quantum field, saying, there is safety here, and someone somewhere may suddenly breathe easier, without knowing why. That is how deeply we are woven together. So the next time loneliness comes like a gray fog rolling in, try not to run from it. Sit with it. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the beat beneath your palm. You are feeling more than your own pulse. You are feeling billions of years of life woven into that rhythm. Feel the breath rising in your lungs. Feel your ribs expand. You are not breathing alone. You are part of a vast chorus of inhalations and exhalations, occurring in every corner of the earth at this very moment. And if you stay quiet long enough, if you allow your awareness to sink below the surface of thoughts and stories, you will feel it, the subtle, shimmering truth that we never walk alone. We are walking each other home. 9. When you miss someone, it is an invitation to return home. There is a kind of ache that slips quietly into the heart without knocking, without warning, sometimes without any clear reason. You could be going about your day, pouring a cup of tea, walking across a familiar street, settling into the soft space before sleep, and suddenly a memory rises a person's face. Their laugh, the sound of their footsteps, or perhaps something more subtle, a presence you can't even define in words. You don't know why they've come to mind, especially if years have passed or your lives have long taken different paths. But there it is, the unmistakable pulse of missing someone. Not the kind of missing that begs for resolution, but the kind that opens like a window inside your chest, letting in a quiet wind of feeling that is neither fully joy nor fully sorrow. When this kind of memory touches you, it is not random. It is not nostalgia. It is not the mind playing tricks. It is an invitation. Every memory that arrives without reason is a signal from the deeper field of connection, a remnant of entanglement that has not yet been fully understood. It is the soul's whisper saying here, pay attention. There is meaning here you haven't yet seen. For so much of our lives, we are taught to fear or resist this kind of longing. We worry that missing someone means we are stuck in the past. We label it as weakness, sentimentality, emotional leakage, or we go the other direction and mistake that ache for a sign we must run back into their arms, rekindle what once was, replay the story in hopes of changing the ending. But longing isn't always a call to return to the person. It's often a call to return to yourself. Missing someone, especially without logical reason, can be one of the purest forms of soul communication. It says something in this connection still holds a message for you. Something was left unintegrated. Something in your heart knows there was more to learn, not from their presence necessarily, but from the space inside you that their presence once illuminated. Think about it. There are people you've lost and barely think of. There are people you loved dearly at one time, but the emotional charge around them has dissolved. And then there are those whose names or faces still ripple through your consciousness on quiet afternoons, for no accountable reason. Why them? Why this memory? Why now? Not because you should chase them or cling to them, but because something within you is rising like a tide, asking to be seen. The soul does not speak in language. It speaks in feeling. It speaks in intuition. It speaks through memories that reappear as gentle messengers. If you stop and listen without judgment, without panic, without the need to act, you will begin to understand that missing someone is not a call to go outward. It is a call to go inward, to reflect on what that connection awakened in you. What did you learn? What did you lose? What version of yourself appeared in their presence that you have not reclaimed since they left? Sometimes the ache is not even about the person. It is about the part of yourself that once felt alive through them, a version of you that could feel more deeply, or trust more openly, or love more fearlessly. The longing you feel may not be for them but for you, the one you were when love was simpler, when your heart had not yet learned all its defenses. And so, the moment you feel that ache, something sacred is happening. Even if you don't yet know how to name it, you are being asked, can you sit with this feeling without trying to escape it? Can you allow the ache to teach you rather than torment you? Missing someone is a bridge. It is where the seen and unseen meet. It is where the rational brain falls silent and the soul takes the microphone. That is why the feeling is often vague, elusive. You're not supposed to solve it like a puzzle. You're meant to feel it as truth. Every soul we love leaves a trace inside us. These traces are not chains, they are threads. They are reminders of how deeply connected we actually are in this life. Across lives, across timelines, we do not consciously recall. When the memory rises, when the heart feels the stir, try not to push it away. Do not immediately interpret it through the old story. Do not assume that wanting them back or regretting the past is the point. Instead, breathe deeply. Place your attention not on the person, but on the feeling itself. Where is it in your body? Does it tighten your chest? Does it warm your heart? Does it bring tears to your eyes? Stay with it gently, as if sitting beside a soft flame in the dark. This is how you honor the invitation, because the truth is, that memory is not simply showing you what was lost, it is showing you what is still alive. The thread of connection does not disappear when the form changes. If two particles once touched, they remain connected across cosmic distances. If two souls once loved, the connection remains, even if the story has ended, not as a burden but as a quiet, humming frequency inside the heart. If you listen long enough, you may find that the ache transforms. It softens into gratitude. It reveals how deeply you once cared. It reminds you that you are capable of great love, a love so honest that it still sings through your being, long after the conversation ended. Some spiritual traditions teach that souls travel together, lifetime after lifetime, that we meet those who are mirrors, teachers, awakeners, catalysts not because of chance, but because of agreements made in a realm beyond this one. Whether or not you believe that literally is irrelevant. The feeling is real. The remembering is real. And when the memory comes as longing, it is not asking you to go back in time. It is asking you to evolve, to extract the meaning, to reclaim the gifts, to bless the bond. When you miss someone, it is not a failure. It is not a sign of regression. It is a signal from the field of your interconnectedness. The field is saying, here, feel this. It is safe now to feel this. The pain you once held is now ready to be honored. The love you once had is ready to be seen in a new light, not as something broken or lost, but as something that expanded you in ways you could not see while the story was still unfolding. Missing someone is not weakness. It is evidence that your heart has lived, that it has touched another soul deeply enough to remember. And the remembering is how life invites you to keep growing, keep softening, keep returning to the place inside you where love is not clinging, but free, where connection is not possession, but presence. So the next time your chest tightens unexpectedly, the next time the memory of someone washes over you like a tide, pause. Don't run. Don't analyze. Just listen. Let it be what it is, a message, a bridge, a quiet call to return, not to them, but to yourself. For every missing is a doorway, every longing is a light, and every soul you once held close remains, in some mysterious and beautiful way, part of the great web of your becoming. Terminso. 10. Practicing connection. Upgrading your own quantum entanglement. There is a quiet revolution that begins the moment you stop trying to control your life and start learning how to tune into its deeper rhythms. It's not loud, not flashy, and it doesn't come with fanfare. It begins in the simplest of ways, with a breath, with a pause, with an inward turning. This revolution is the practice of connection, not just with others, but with the field of being that surrounds and flows through all things. When you begin to understand that entanglement is not just something that happens between particles or even between souls, but something that responds to the vibration of your own consciousness, you realize that you can shape your life not by force, but by frequency. You can upgrade the way your reality responds to you by upgrading the way you relate to yourself. Every practice that brings you into presence changes your field. Each moment, you spend breathing consciously. Each second, you choose gratitude over complaint. Each time you interrupt the automatic voice of fear and replace it with gentleness, your internal frequency shifts. And because your life is always entangled with the energy within you, that shift ripples outward through relationships, through opportunities, through what synchronizes around you. Meditation is not just a self-care ritual. It is a direct communication with the quantum field. When you sit in stillness, not trying to fix anything, not running from your thoughts, but simply observing, something inside you begins to settle into coherence. The mind stops leaking energy across 1,000 imagined scenarios and sinks into the still pool of what is. This is the first upgrade, the return to presence. In that stillness, the nervous system recalibrates, the breath deepens, the body stops bracing for threats that do not exist. And slowly, almost invisibly at first, the boundary between you and the world begins to soften. You start to feel less like a separate mind in a body, and more like a field of awareness in conversation with something much larger. The more often you return to that stillness, the more the entangled threads between you and reality strengthen. You begin to pick up subtle cues more easily. You begin to sense what is aligned and what is not before the evidence appears. You feel when to act and when to wait, not because of logic, but because your inner tuning is recalibrating to truth. Practices like gratitude are not sentimental. They are energetic alignments. When you consciously choose to feel grateful not as a performance, but as a sincere acknowledgement of what sustains you, your frequency rises. Gratitude brings coherence to the heart. When the heart becomes coherent, the electromagnetic field around your body expands. Others feel it. Opportunities respond to it. Life begins to bend toward that frequency, like plants turning toward sunlight. We often underestimate gratitude because it feels small, but by the laws of vibration, the feeling of gratitude is one of the highest signatures of alignment. It signals to the quantum field, I see beauty here. I trust this moment. I am available to receive what is meant for me. And the field responds. Breath is another gateway. Not just the unconscious breath that keeps you alive, but the intentional breath that brings you home. Each time you take a slow, conscious inhale and a gentle, honest exhale, you are sending a message to the nervous system. I am safe in this moment. The body begins to trust. The mind quiets. The field becomes receptive. Breath is the original code of embodiment. It harmonizes the physical and the energetic. When you return to breath, again and again, you are practicing the art of re-entering the present moment, which is the only doorway through which alignment ever arrives. This is how you upgrade your entanglement, by becoming more available to the subtle. The more present you are, the more sensitive you become to the synchronies that flow toward those who are awake enough to notice. You no longer need to force your way forward. You begin to navigate by resonance. Rest becomes a form of intelligence. Stillness becomes a form of listening. Love becomes a natural state. Not because you are trying to be good, but because the contraction around your heart slowly dissolves, allowing you to feel the connection that was always there. As your consciousness expands, your reality reorganizes around that expansion. You begin to see coincidences not as random events, but as feedback loops, proof that your inner world and your outer world are already in dialogue. You think of someone with gratitude, and they call. You release an old emotional pattern, and a new opportunity arrives quietly the next week. You say no to something that drains your spirit, and within days, something that nourishes it shows up. This is the new language of entanglement, the language of synchronicity. It is how life responds to internal alignment. And yet, this path is not about chasing signs or manifestations. It is not about proving that you have power. It is about remembering that you are part of a field that responds to the truth of your being, not the performative truth, not the one you curate for others, but the truth that rises from the depths when you are finally willing to sit with yourself in honesty, when you stop pretending, when you stop fleeing your own shadow, when you let yourself exhale fully and say, I am here, I am willing, I am listening. The more you integrate this kind of presence into your daily life, not as a ritual you perform for results, but as a way of being, the more naturally the world mirrors coherence back to you. You'll notice that the right people appear without effort. That guidance arrives in strange and beautiful ways. That doors close gently when something is not meant for you and open beautifully when it is. And the most gentle truth of all will begin to dawn on you that reality is not an opposing force. It is a partner. It is responding to your vibration all the time. To practice this way of living is not to escape the world, it is to finally live in it fully. When you are coherent, when your nervous system is not in constant defense, when your mind is spacious and your heart is soft, you are no longer a scattered signal. You are a tuning fork, and everything in your field that matches your authenticity begins to ring in harmony with you. It may take time. It may require unlearning decades of internal dissonance, but the path is simple. Breathe. Listen. Allow. Be honest with yourself. Speak to your own heart with kindness. Practice awareness, not as a performance, but as an act of remembering. There is no spiritual technique more powerful than gentleness. As you move through life with this frequency, the invisible threads between you and all things become stronger, clearer, more responsive. You begin to feel the world again, the way you felt it when you were small, alive, full of signs, pulsing with unseen meaning. You are no longer trying to bend the world into shape. You are letting the shape of your own consciousness invite the world to meet you. And it will, because entanglement is not a metaphor. It is a law. And when you practice connection, real connection, through presence, breath, gratitude, authenticity, you are upgrading your entire field to resonate with the version of reality you were always meant to meet. Through it all, remember this: the universe is not moved by force, performance, or perfection. It is moved by coherence. When your inner world becomes a place of honesty, peace, and embodied presence, the outer world responds like a mirror, not because you earned it, but because existence has always been entangled with the truth of what you are. You have never been separate from the whole. There's a truth that sits quietly at the edge of every scientific discovery and every spiritual revelation. You have never really been alone. Not for a single breath. Not for a single thought. And though the world may sometimes treat you like an isolated being, trapped inside a single body, moving through a series of unconnected moments, the deeper layers of existence tell another story, one woven from invisible threads of connection, supple energies, and ancient echoes of unity that science is only beginning to describe, and the heart has always known. Consider for a moment the humble photon, a particle of light so small, it becomes easy to forget that it holds the key to a great cosmic secret. If one photon is split into two, and then separated by millions of miles, or even placed at opposite ends of the universe, something extraordinary happens when one of them is altered. The other changes instantly. No delay, no signal, no physical link. Einstein himself called this phenomenon spooky action at a distance, because it refused to obey the rules of time or geometry, and yet it happens every time, without fail. Two particles, once connected, are forever connected. One shift here creates a shift there. One movement in a single point of space becomes a vibration in another, beyond all known limitations. Now pause. Let this sink beneath the mind and into the body. If a photon can do that, what does it mean for you? A being made not only of particles, but of awareness, memory, breath, and the power to love. What if the longing in your chest, the memory that returns out of nowhere, the sudden warmth at the thought of someone far away, is not just emotion but resonance? What if your consciousness knows something your personality keeps forgetting, that nothing you think, feel, or dream arises in isolation? Every time your heart quivers with a memory, every time you feel that inexplicable tug towards someone or something, every time a dream leaves an imprint on your morning breath, you are being reminded. You are part of an invisible field that connects everything. You are not a solitary mind wandering through a cold physical world. You are one pulse in a living whole. You are like a wave on the ocean, beautiful and distinct. Yes, but never separate from the water that shapes you. There is a tenderness to this truth. It arrives not as an argument, but as a gentle remembering, like a lullaby the soul has heard many times before. You belong, not because you have earned your place, not because you are flawless or enlightened, but because belonging is the foundation of existence. In every cell of your body, there is evidence. You breathe air that billions of others have breathed. You drink water that has moved through countless forms. You carry within you the atoms of stars, the dust of ancient forests, the salt of forgotten oceans. How could you ever be separate when your body itself is made from the universe? And what of your emotional life, those invisible currents of feeling that seem to rise from nowhere and disappear into dreams? They, too, are a proof. They remind you that what you feel is not contained within your skin. You ache for someone miles away and feel it in your chest. Though nothing external has touched you, you sense the pain of a loved one without needing their words. You remember a moment from childhood, and your body responds as if time has folded in on itself. No matter how small or isolated you may feel on the surface, the truth is always humming beneath everything that ever touched your soul. Still lives within you, and you are simultaneously living within the soul of something vaster than your mind can comprehend. This field, this ocean of consciousness, does not judge your imperfection. It does not withhold connection when you feel lost. It does not vanish when you forget it. It simply is, waiting for you to notice, to pause long enough to feel your breath moving in your ribs, to watch a sunset without rushing, to let tears fall without shame. Because in those quiet moments, you return not with your thinking mind, but with your being, to the woven truth that you are not navigating life alone. You never were, you never will. So when the world becomes loud, when your thoughts turn against you, when you feel like a lone figure searching endlessly for a place you might belong, listen beneath the noise. Return to the body. Breathe. Feel the heartbeat inside your chest, the drum that has been keeping rhythm since before you were born. With each beat, remember you are in sync with billions of hearts, all pulsing with the same ancient intelligence, all held by the same shimmering breath of consciousness. You are not meant to figure everything out. You are meant to feel your way back into this truth. Your purpose is not to control the universe. Your purpose is to let love move through you, as you, without gripping, without fear. Let yourself be in conversation with life, instead of trying to command it. Let your awareness stretch gently, not into fantasy, but into presence. Become willing to feel like a wave, knowing that you rise and fall, but are never disconnected from the sea beneath. Because the deepest truth of your existence is this: you are a branch of the ocean of consciousness, and every pulse within you, vibrates back to the universe that holds you. So be present, be soft, be here. Notice what you feel without needing to fix or name it. Let love reach you, not as something you earn, but as something that was always yours. Every moment of awareness is a thread woven back into the whole. Every breath of surrender is a step toward remembering. Every kind act, every humble thought, every tear of release. These are not small. They are how the universe recognizes itself through you. You are not a separate fragment searching for wholeness. You are already the whole, temporarily playing at being a fragment in order to know itself more deeply. When you allow this remembrance to move through your life, something astonishing happens. You stop striving for connection and begin to be connection. You stop chasing answers and begin to live the question, and slowly, like light rising over a still horizon, you begin to see that wherever you stand, whatever you feel, the truth remains unchanged. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You are the universe, remembering itself through a human life. Let that truth cradle you. Let it soften you. Let it guide your breath. And as you walk forward, may you feel the quiet hum of unity in everything you touch.